Law is a fan favorite character, and that comes with people saying all types of stuff about him, and it's not all necessarily true. Law fought Blackbeard and Big Mom, and I feel like people use his fighting capabilities on those characters and try to apply it on the overall verse. This isn't me saying Law can't fight people one-on-one, because obviously that's not true. Law has beaten guys like Virgo, violated Smoker, dismantled Hawkins, so he's clearly capable of holding his own. But to what extent is the question? In this video, I just want to highlight Law's strengths as a fighter and dispel all the misconceptions on what he did in Big Mom's fight in comparison to Kid, and if he actually quote-unquote carried him, while talking about his capabilities as an individual fighter. Leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys are new. You don't have to do it obviously, but you feel me? Like, you feel me? Law on the rooftop against Kaido and Big Mom was your typical support fighter, more so to the point where he actually got trolled for it. But to be specific, Law's most impactful moments didn't come from him performing massive strength feats and like inflicting a lot of damage. He did have moments where he used abilities like Tact and Gamma Knife, but those moments had minimal impact. It was more so spamming Hack's abilities, being strategic, and using his allies to his advantage that gave him most of his impact. Luffy, who let his guard down, was about to take an attack from Kaido. Law being there obviously saved him with his Shambles ability. Another moment where Law's Shambles ability came in clutch when he was able to help Zoro save Luffy from Kaido's Hyper Beam. Law's Shambles again was used to save Zoro's life after he held off Hakai from Big Mom and Kaido so that all of them can get away. Zoro holding off this attack for a brief moment destroyed his body. Law essentially saved his life because if he didn't get Zoro out of there, Zoro would have got his whole body probably disintegrated. Okay, that's an exaggeration, but he would have been probably dead. Again, where Law's Shambles ability is really effective, Law traps Zeus in a metal box, which then leaves an off-guard Big Mom to get dismantled by Kid and Zoro. By Killer and Zoro, my bad. Where they end up slicing her only remaining homie, leaving her helpless, to where useless Kid then propels Big Mom into the air, allowing Law to use Tact in order to remove Big Mom from the vicinity. This was all possible because of Law's Hack's abilities being able to isolate Big Mom from Zeus. Law was also able to take advantage of the fact that Kaido was about to hit Zoro, but switching him allowed him to not only save Zoro, but catch Kaido off guard and land an ejection shot on Kaido. As we can see on the rooftop alone, Law's best moments come from setting up his allies or using his allies to his advantage, or just straight up saving the life of his allies. That's his strength as a fighter, playing off you, exploiting what the defense or offense gives you. He just doesn't call ISO and beat you off the dribble, or try to bulldozer his way to the rim like he's Luffy or Zoro. He's more methodical. I don't know why I said that word, I don't even know what that means. But more examples of this come from Law and Kid versus Big Mom. The beginning of this fight essentially starts with Kid being nerfed by Hawkins. In the brief moments in this chapter, it's Law and Kid getting destroyed by Big Mom, mainly because Kid is suffering from Hawkins. Then later Killer defeats Hawkins and they're both able to lock in. Before that moment though, Law was able to land a counter shock, which doesn't really do anything. But besides that, they both just get hit by attacks. For the next chapter, we cut to useless Kid taking an Ikaku sovereignty head on, like right to the dome. While Kid is free falling, we get revealed to their awakenings. As Big Mom is focused on Kid, Law is able to land his awakening and use Shock Will. So for those of you that say Law carried Kid, how is that even possible when moments like this only happen because Kid is her target? She's literally focused on Kid, letting Law jump on her back. I want you to also notice how Law was able to land Kroom here. In this fight, he either lands Kroom because Big Mom's off guard, but if we're just being honest, he just lands Kroom because Big Mom is a stationary target that just doesn't react to anything or just chooses not to. I'm not making this up to discredit Kid or Law. This is what Big Mom is. This is what she's notorious for. Not reacting to being oblivious and letting anyone violate her. Brook, Frankie, Jinbei did it like 2 times. Robin, Nami, Queen, King, Zoro blitzed her like 10 times on the roof. And it's so bad to the point where she doesn't even choose to dodge or defend herself, especially even when she knows she's gonna take damage. But we'll get to those moments. After that, Kid uses his awakening, causing Metal to crash down on her. She then uses her lifespan and says you runts are bad, indicating she's taking damage from both of them, even if it's just quote-unquote metal to you guys. Big Mom in this fight is even terrified of Kid at a moment, so she's clearly taking damage from him. Next moment is Law landing Shock Will again. Big Mom, who's right next to Law, lets Law extend his sword, no homo, casually with like no effort, then does a shock will again. Once again, this is who and how he's landing his awakenings on. Just keep note of that. Like, this is not downplayed, this is just context. Then Kid charges up an attack while Big Mom stands there and watches him do it. See how I said Big Mom doesn't defend or dodge? This is a prime example. He says, "Kid, you're still alive?" and then lets him talk and just takes the attack head on. In the next panel, she calls Law's attacks dangerous and that it broke her bones. It's pretty obvious that Law is more lethal to Big Mom than Kid is, but that doesn't mean Law is carrying him, nor does it undermine Kid's damage as well. That blow he just hit Big Mom with did damage to Big Mom, to the point where she had to dodge it in fear later on. But yeah, before that moment, Kid just casually jumps off his bull and blitzes her and slaps the awakening on her forehead. Big Mom, who's focused on hitting Kid, gets a building dropped at her head. Law then casually jumps on Big Mom's lap as she stares at him, rubbing her head. Not this again. Not only can Law just jump on her lap like that, this is puncture will. It takes longer for him to get off the attack because the sword needs to keep extending. No homo. So she has more time to get him off her body, but all she does is coat her hands in Artem and Hockey and sends punches towards Law. This is a feat of course for Law, but is any high level competent fighter in this situation allowing this to happen? Like, aren't they just gonna send Law flying? Like, let's be honest. A guy who's been damaging her the entire time and had her terrified is now going to hit you with his ultimate attack. What the do you mean, hit me with your best shot? Then you look like this right after. Then the entirety of the next chapter is essentially Kid holding her down with damn punk, while Law silences her with his re-room ability from taking lifespans. Then Kid pushes her through Onigashima. So yeah, like, this was a collective effort that couldn't be possible without either of them. Sure, Law's attacks seem like they were more lethal, but that doesn't mean he carried it. But that's besides the point I'm trying to make. Law's trump card isn't as accessible as you guys think, and the Big Mom fight made it very easy for him to get his awakening off due to the specific enemy and the help from Eustace Kid. His awakening is an ability he has to somehow inject into someone's body. The people he fought made that very convenient. I think that limits him as a fighter, and when we act like Law can perform these identical feats on actual competent characters, especially in a one-on-one, it gets kind of ridiculous. But there's also another example where people like to overhype Law's one-on-one capabilities. In the top 30 stream we did, I heard one of the guys say some shit about how Law ran into Blackbeard and he was able to mess him up, while Kid ran into Shanks and just got one-tapped, showing the difference between Kid and Law. And I quote, "Law obviously is better than Kid because he performed better against another Yonko." And this is a take a lot of people just have, but this is just another facade that people are either oblivious to or choose to ignore the context. Eustace Kid went to Elbaf and tried to destroy the ships of Shanks' fleet on the coast of Elbaf. Kid was an idiot for attacking Shanks' people for sure, but in doing so, that caused a very warranted reaction from Shanks. Shanks, when dealing with Kid, reminds his crew that they shouldn't take him lightly. Kid charges up his damn punk, puts Shanks into distress to where he needs to act fast. Shanks then uses Future Sight and starts to sweat. He's about to do some serious damage, as expected, then proceeds to one-shot Kid with Divine Departure. As we can see leading up to that one-shot, that Shanks was very worried about Kid destroying the ships, to where he had to take him very seriously and actually one-shot him with a serious attack. When you compare this to what Law did against Blackbeard, it's not a fair comparison because of the differences of the character and scenarios. Law runs into Blackbeard, who's riding on his damn crewmate on some Z-ha-ha-ha-ha shit. Law, being able to violate guys who are much weaker than him, ends up doing room and cutting the horse in half, leaving Blackbeard to freefall. Blackbeard, who was already unaware of Law's abilities, is now getting rendered immobilized, still on some Z-ha-ha-ha-ha shit while falling. Again, Kid ran into a stronger Yonko who took him very seriously. But anyway, Law uses this moment to once again, like with the Big Mom situation, to capture a stationary careless target with his Kroom ability. But yeah, he inserts Kroom into a free-falling Blackbeard and does shock will. This absolutely cooks Blackbeard. But is it really something to use against Kid or even other fighters around his level? No, because the whole reason Law is able to do this is because he's facing Blackbeard. Blackbeard is notoriously a guy known for being extremely reckless and carefree when fighting battles. This is a core element to his character. In every fight he had, he eats unnecessary attacks just because he's cocky. He walks up to Magellan on a small bridge and says, "See ha 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 ha, so you're Magellan," then proceeds to get him and his entire crew one shot. No plan, no nothing, no dodging, no nothing. Z ha 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 ha, you're Magellan, it's his plan to fight. Against Whitebeard, he lacks any care for his well-being as well. He thinks, since he can negate a Devil that he can stop Whitebeard's power and pulls him with the Black Vortex. Your powers have no effect on me anymore. See, you can't use your quakes anymore. Then proceeds to get stabbed by his Bicento and almost lose an arm. Whitebeard, who has a weapon and is physically a monster, not even just including hockey, is a man who is very capable of hurting Blackbeard, and that's something he knows. But like Whitebeard said, the key weaknesses of his character are overconfidence and carelessness. That's the same reason why Law was capable of doing what he did to Blackbeard, and that is highlighted by Blackbeard not being aware of Law's powers and his own crewmate saying that Blackbeard went into this fight half-cooked, aka he went into this fight overconfident and careless. So comparing that to Use's Kid is not fair, because Kid got taken out by a serious top tier fighting to save his people, while Law got to fight a careless maniac that's known for being a careless fighter that's easy to exploit. Yo, just ask Gear 2 Luffy, who rocked him and Impel down. It was so easy for Luffy to just charge up an attack in front of him and just rock his shit. Like, I hope no one's saying the fact that he damaged him is a feat too. This guy gets damaged and hurt by practically anything. Just ask Gear 2 Luffy once again. There's other examples, but yeah, Blackbeard is just an endurance beast. He takes severe damage and fights through it. That's just the nature of his devil fruit as well. Also, the clash that they had led to Law getting off screen, so like, let's not even bring that up. So to sum this up, to touch on Kroom once again, his awakening, he landed Kroom on characters like Blackbeard, a character we established can be exploited and can get hit by almost anything. The two examples in the series where he can land his awakening is against very good matchups for him. This is what I mean by Law thrives in group fights more than individual fights, because against serious fighters in the verse, this whole Kroom getting landed on off guard, dumb, careless fighters is not flying. Yes, Law had and can have fights where he doesn't need his awakening, or he can have fights where his awakening can just work on some people, and for the most part he can be effective in a one-on-one fight, but that's not where he's at his best. His best is being able to spam his hacks abilities to support other people, using his awakening on openings his other allies grant. The biggest fights in his career are bad representatives of what you guys think Law can do to other people, with his awakening at least, which is his best ability. I just find it crazy when I hear people say stuff like Law will use puncture will on Zoro. Like, bro, that shit ain't landing. Like, in any possible world, do you see Law landing a shock will on someone like Ben Beckman? Like, he just casually inserts his Kroom through their body as they just somehow just get caught off guard and let it happen. So yeah, Law's capabilities and what he's capable of in a team fight is what we should take away from his showings, not so much applied to his individual capabilities. But individually, he's still a very capable fighter of holding his own and should still be considered stronger than most commanders.